Picture this, you're in a crowded cafe on a Saturday morning. The smell of fresh coffee fills the air, people are chatting softly, and for a moment it feels almost peaceful. Then, suddenly, your toddler drops their muffin, bursts into tears, and within seconds the crying escalates into full-blown screams. Heads turn. Strangers glance over their cups, and you feel the heat rising in your face. You whisper, "Please, not here, not now." If you've ever felt that sinking feeling, that mix of embarrassment, frustration, and helplessness, you are not alone. Every parent of a toddler knows the public meltdown, the kind where it feels like the whole world is watching. And here's the truth, it's not a sign that you're a bad parent, and it's not a sign that your child is difficult. It's simply part of the journey of growing up. You see, tantrums aren't about kids trying to manipulate you. They are about emotions so big that a small body doesn't know what to do with them. Imagine a tiny soda bottle being shaken, pressure builds until the cap explodes off. That's what's happening inside your toddler's brain when they scream, kick, or cry uncontrollably. And here's the most important part, you actually have more power than you think to guide these storms. Not by yelling louder, not by giving in to avoid the scene, but by using calm, proven strategies that help both you and your child navigate these emotional hurricanes. In this video, we'll explore exactly what happens inside your child's brain during a tantrum and how you can respond in ways that bring calm instead of chaos. By the end, you'll feel more confident, less embarrassed, and far more prepared for the next meltdown, whether it happens in your living room or the middle of aisle 5 at the grocery store. But before we dive into strategies, let's start with one crucial question: why do tantrums happen in the first place? Tantrums might look like simple misbehavior, but in reality, they are deeply connected to how a toddler's brain is wired at this stage of development. Imagine the human brain as a construction site. The emotional part, the limbic system, is built early and works at full speed, but the control tower, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for reasoning, impulse control, and decision-making, is still under construction. That means when frustration hits, the emotions take over with almost no filter. A toddler doesn't yet have the tools to pause, think, and respond calmly. Instead, the emotion bursts out, raw and uncontained. Science backs this up. Studies using brain imaging show that toddlers experience emotions as intensely as adults, sometimes even more so, but without the wiring to manage them. Think of it like having a sports car engine with bicycle brakes. When something goes wrong, whether it's not getting the right colored cup, being told it's time to leave the playground, or feeling hungry and tired, the brain slams on brakes that simply aren't strong enough, and the emotional car spins out of control. Parents often ask, but why do tantrums seem to come out of nowhere? The truth is they rarely come out of nowhere. Triggers build up. Lack of sleep, overstimulation, hunger, or a sudden change in routine can lower a toddler's threshold until even a small disappointment tips them over the edge. Imagine filling a glass with water drop by drop. Eventually, the tiniest splash causes it to overflow. Tantrums are that overflow. Understanding this doesn't make the noise any easier in the moment, but it changes how you see it. Instead of labeling your child as difficult or spoiled, you can recognize that their brain is still learning how to manage big feelings. It also helps you predict when meltdowns are more likely and take steps to reduce those triggers before they boil over. Knowing the why is the first step, because it allows you to move from reacting in frustration to responding with intention. And once you see tantrums as developmental storms rather than acts of defiance, the way forward becomes much clearer. When your toddler loses control, your own body often reacts instantly. Your heart rate speeds up, your face feels hot, and a wave of stress urges you to shout or stop the chaos at any cost. This is not weakness, it's biology. Our brains are wired to mirror the emotional states of those around us. When your child screams, your nervous system registers it as danger and activates fight or flight. But here's the powerful truth: your calm nervous system can actually help regulate theirs. This process is called co-regulation, and it's one of the most important tools a parent can use. Instead of matching their storm, you become the anchor. That means slowing your breathing, lowering your voice, and resisting the urge to explain or argue while emotions run high. Imagine standing beside a raging fire. Throwing more fire on it won't help, but bringing water eventually cools it down. Your calm presence is that water. A simple mantra can support you in the heat of the moment. This is not an emergency. Unless your child is physically unsafe, you have the space to pause, breathe, and center yourself before responding. Some parents find it helpful to focus on physical grounding, pressing their feet into the floor, unclenching their jaw, or exhaling slowly, as a way to calm their bodies so their mind can follow. Picture their tantrum not as a crisis, but as emotional smoke. It looks overwhelming, but smoke by itself isn't fire. By keeping that perspective, you send a powerful nonverbal message to your child: you are safe, I am steady, and together we will get through this. Over time, children learn from this calm modeling. They begin to understand that big feelings can be survived without explosions, because they have experienced your example again and again. It doesn't mean you'll never lose your cool, every parent does, but the more you practice regulating yourself first, the more you'll find that tantrums resolve faster and with less damage to your relationship. Staying calm isn't about ignoring the behavior, it's about giving your child the environment they need to come back into balance. And once that balance starts to return, you'll discover that there's a powerful way to connect before you even think about correcting. In the middle of a tantrum, most parents feel the urge to correct the behavior immediately, maybe with a firm "stop crying," or "you can't act like that." But here's the problem: when a child's emotional brain has taken over, logic simply doesn't land. It's like trying to pour instructions into a locked safe. The door isn't open yet, so the message can't get inside. That's why the first step is always connection before correction. Connection means showing your child that you see and understand their feelings, even if you can't give them what they want. Imagine being furious and someone calmly says, "I understand you're upset." That doesn't make the anger vanish, but it softens the intensity because you no longer feel invisible. For toddlers, this recognition is even more powerful. It can sound as simple as, "You really wanted that toy, and it's so hard when we can't have it." This doesn't mean you're giving in, it means you're validating their reality. Validation doesn't reward bad behavior, it acknowledges the storm they are in. Think of it as holding an umbrella over your child in heavy rain. You're not stopping the storm instantly, but you're shielding them until it passes. When kids feel heard, they often calm faster, because part of the panic comes from feeling alone with emotions too big to handle. Connection can also be nonverbal. Kneeling to eye level, offering gentle eye contact, or simply being nearby without judgment communicates safety. Your child may push you away in the moment, but your calm presence still registers. And once they begin to settle, the correction part becomes possible, like guiding them toward words instead of screams, or reminding them of the boundary that still stands. The sequence matters: connect first, then correct. Skipping connection often leads to longer, louder meltdowns, because the child is fighting to be seen before they can listen. When you lead with empathy, you're not only shortening the tantrum, you're teaching your child a vital life lesson: feelings are valid, and they can be expressed without breaking connection. And when that storm begins to fade, you'll find gentle ways to redirect their energy into something more constructive. Once the emotional storm has begun to settle, one of the most effective tools in your parenting toolbox is distraction and redirection. Some parents hear the word distraction and think it sounds like a cheap trick, but in reality, it's a developmentally appropriate way to help a toddler move from overwhelming frustration back into manageable focus. Toddlers simply cannot hold two strong emotional states at once. If you introduce curiosity, humor, or play, you're gently shifting their brain's attention away from the trigger. Picture it like changing the channel on a radio that's blasting static. Suddenly the sound clears, and there's space to breathe again. The key is to keep it light and natural. Instead of arguing over the toy they can't have, you might suddenly point out something outside the window: "Look, a doggy with a red ball." Or you can invite them into playful movement: "Can you hop like a bunny all the way to the door?" Even something silly, like making a funny face or blowing a raspberry, can flip the script from anger to laughter. This isn't bribery, because you're not offering a reward in exchange for behavior. You're simply offering a new focus for energy that was spiraling out of control. Think about it: when adults are upset, we often change our environment, step outside, listen to music, talk to a friend. Toddlers don't yet have those tools, so your playful redirection gives them a way out of the emotional corner they feel trapped in. It's important to remember that redirection doesn't mean dismissing their feelings. Acknowledge first, "I know you're sad we can't buy that toy," and then gently offer the new focus. That way, your child feels understood, not ignored. Over time, these moments of gentle distraction teach toddlers an important skill. Emotions are real and valid, but they don't have to control the whole experience. By guiding them into curiosity or play, you're showing them that there are healthy exits from frustration. And once you've helped them shift gears, you're in a much stronger position to hold boundaries without slipping into a power struggle. Boundaries are one of the greatest gifts you can give your child, even if in the moment it doesn't feel that way. For toddlers, boundaries create a sense of safety. They may push against them, they may scream at them, but deep down those limits are proof that someone steady is guiding the ship. The challenge for parents is to enforce boundaries without falling into endless power struggles. A power struggle happens when you and your child both dig in, trying to win. But when emotions are already high, battles only escalate, and no one feels respected. The secret is consistency delivered calmly. Instead of long lectures or raised voices, keep your boundary statements short, clear, and firm. "I won't let you hit." "It's time to leave now." We use gentle hands. Then follow through with action, not anger. For example, if your toddler refuses to leave the playground, instead of arguing for 10 minutes, you might calmly pick them up and carry them to the car, repeating the same calm phrase, "Playtime is finished, we're going home." You're showing through your steadiness that words mean something, and that rules don't change depending on how loud they cry. Another helpful strategy is offering choices within the boundary. This gives toddlers a sense of control without weakening the rule. Instead of "you can't run in the store," you might say, "Do you want to sit in the cart or hold my hand?" Both options keep them safe, but the child feels empowered by choosing. It's also essential to avoid threats you can't follow through on. Promising consequences you don't intend to enforce teaches kids to test you harder. Think of yourself as a guardrail on a mountain road, firm, steady, unmovable, but not emotional. Guardrails don't yell at the car, they simply hold it in place. The calmer and more predictable your limits are, the fewer dramatic battles you'll face. And as your toddler experiences these steady boundaries over time, they start to internalize the rules themselves. Boundaries are not walls that shut children out, they're guideposts that keep them safe as they learn to handle the world. And once those guideposts are secure, you can start teaching skills that will last long beyond the toddler years. While handling tantrums in the moment is important, the bigger picture is about teaching your child the tools to manage their emotions for life. Toddlers won't master self-regulation overnight, but every meltdown is a chance to plant seeds that grow into resilience, patience, and empathy. One of the simplest and most powerful strategies is naming emotions. When you calmly say, "You're feeling angry," or "That's frustration," you're giving your child the language to make sense of their inner world. Over time, this turns overwhelming chaos into something they can identify and talk about. Imagine being lost in a foreign country with no map. Naming emotions is like giving your child a compass. Another long-term tool is modeling coping strategies. Children learn by imitation, so if you take deep breaths when you're upset, they will notice. You can even make it playful, call it dragon breathing, where you exhale like fire, or rocket jumps, where they stomp out their frustration with big steps. The sillier the name, the more likely they are to remember it in tough moments. These activities teach the body how to release stress in safe ways instead of through hitting or screaming. Storytelling can also help. Reading books about feelings, pointing out emotions in characters, or sharing your own, "I felt disappointed when it rained today, but I listened to music and felt better," normalizes emotional ups and downs. The more examples your child sees, the more flexible their own coping skills become. It's also important to create daily routines that build emotional stability. Regular sleep, predictable meal times, and quiet breaks reduce the overload that often fuels meltdowns. Think of it as keeping their emotional fuel tank from running on empty. The goal isn't to eliminate tantrums, they are part of development, but to gradually shorten their length and reduce their intensity as your child grows. Each time you respond with patience, teach a word, or model a skill, you're adding a tool to their emotional toolbox. Eventually, your toddler learns that big feelings can be managed, not feared. And while these skills build slowly, they create a foundation your child will carry long after the tantrum years fade. Still, even with the best intentions, many parents fall into traps that accidentally make tantrums worse. Even the most loving parents can unintentionally make tantrums worse. One of the most common mistakes is trying to reason with a child in the middle of a meltdown. Remember, their thinking brain is offline. Explaining why they can't have the toy or why it's bedtime usually adds more frustration, not less. Another mistake is raising your voice to compete with theirs. Yelling only pours fuel on the fire and teaches your child that shouting is an acceptable way to handle big emotions. A third trap is giving in every time just to stop the noise. While it may bring temporary peace, it also teaches toddlers that tantrums are a powerful negotiation tool. The next time they want something, they'll remember that screaming worked. Shaming language is another pitfall. Saying things like "stop acting like a baby" or "everyone is staring at you" might quiet your child in the moment, but it damages their sense of safety and self-worth. Instead of learning how to manage feelings, they learn that their emotions are something to be hidden. Some parents also swing to the opposite extreme, ignoring the tantrum completely, withdrawing eye contact, or walking away in frustration. While space can sometimes help, total disconnection leaves a child feeling abandoned right when they're most overwhelmed. A more balanced approach is to stay present without feeding the drama. That means calmly acknowledging their feelings, holding your ground on the limit, and waiting for the wave to pass. Finally, inconsistency is a major trigger for more meltdowns. If one day you enforce a rule firmly and the next day you cave, your toddler learns to keep testing until they get the answer they want. Predictability builds security. It tells your child that while their feelings are big, the boundaries don't change. Avoiding these common mistakes doesn't mean you'll prevent every tantrum, no parent can, but it does mean you'll stop unintentionally reinforcing the behavior. And that creates more space for your child to practice healthier ways of coping. The good news is that with time, consistency, and empathy, tantrums naturally decrease. And that brings us to a hopeful perspective that every tired parent needs to hear. Here's the part that often gets lost in the chaos of daily life: tantrums are temporary. They may feel endless when you're in the thick of them, but they are a normal, healthy stage of development. As your child's brain matures, especially the prefrontal cortex, their ability to pause, think, and regulate emotions grows stronger. The endless storms of age 2 and 3 slowly give way to more words, more self-control, and fewer public meltdowns. What feels like a mountain today will one day be a memory you look back on with a smile. The most encouraging truth is that how you respond now shapes more than the moment, it shapes the relationship. Every time you stay calm, every time you validate feelings while holding firm boundaries, you are building trust. You're teaching your child that big emotions are not dangerous, that love doesn't disappear when things get hard, and that connection is stronger than chaos. These lessons last far beyond the toddler years. They become the foundation for how your child handles frustration in school, disappointment with friends, or conflict as a teenager. Think of tantrums as emotional training wheels. They're wobbly, they're noisy, and sometimes they make the whole ride feel exhausting, but they are temporary supports while your child learns balance. And just like training wheels eventually come off, tantrums eventually fade as emotional muscles grow. So the next time you find yourself in the middle of a grocery store aisle with a screaming toddler, remember, this isn't proof of failure, it's proof of growth. It's a sign that your child is practicing emotions too big for their small body to manage yet. And your role is not to silence the storm, but to guide them through it until the clouds clear. One day you'll look back and realize those loud, red-faced moments were stepping stones toward resilience and empathy. Tantrums don't last forever, but the bond you build by walking through them together does. Subscribe for more parenting wisdom. You're not alone on this journey.